starts small. You don't even notice at first. It's the little hesitations. The neighbor who borrows your lawnmower and for the first time, you get a knot in your stomach, wondering if you'll ever see it again. It's the friend who says, "I'll get you back tomorrow." And you both just let the words hang there, knowing it's not true. It's watching the news and suddenly realizing the anchor's smile is just a little too perfect, a performance for an audience that stopped believing. These are the hairline fractures in the foundation of our world. We ignore them because they're tiny, but they spread, they deepen. And then one day, with no warning, the floor just gives out. This isn't a story about a single catastrophe. It's about how a society dies. Not with a bang, but with a million silent, tiny breaks that finally shatter the whole thing. It happens not because of one big lie, but because we all, together, forgot how to believe in each other. Imagine a world without trust. And I don't mean in some philosophical, abstract way. I mean a real, tangible world where you have to count your change 3 times at the coffee shop you've been going to for 10 years. A world where you don't lend a friend a book because you know it's never coming back. Where a handshake is just an empty gesture from a forgotten time. Sounds like a dystopian novel, right? But what if I told you the invisible structure that keeps this from being our reality is actively decaying? That the social contract holding our civilization together is fraying, thread by thread, right in front of us. This isn't about the future, this is about right now. We are living through a quiet crisis of unprecedented distrust. The percentage of American adults who believe most people can be trusted has crashed from 46% in 1972 to around 34% in recent years. This isn't just another number on a chart. It's a symptom of a deep sickness in our society. And if we don't treat it, it could lead to total systemic collapse. Before we can get into the collapse, we have to understand what's actually collapsing. Trust. We use the word so much it's almost meaningless, but it's the single most important piece of human civilization. It's the invisible engine that powers our societies, the silent partner in every deal we make, and the unseen foundation of every single relationship we have. Think about the simplest transaction: buying a coffee. You hand a stranger a piece of plastic. They trust that this card connects to a system that will move a few digital dollars into their boss's account. In return, you trust the hot liquid they give you is actually coffee and not drain cleaner. You trust the milk isn't spoiled and the cup won't melt in your hand. Every day you perform hundreds of these acts of blind faith. You trust that other cars will stay in their own lanes. You trust the food at the grocery store won't kill you. You trust the pilot flying your plane isn't drunk. This massive web of trust is what allows human society to get complex and to grow. Without it, every interaction becomes a high-stakes negotiation. Economists have proven that high-trust societies are richer. They have lower transaction costs because you don't need to waste time and money on contracts and lawyers for every little thing. People take risks, invest in new ideas, and build things together. In a low-trust society, the opposite is true. It becomes what they call a distrust trap. Everything gets more expensive, not just in money, but in time, energy, and mental load. Imagine having to hire a lawyer just to borrow a drill from your neighbor. Life would grind to a halt. When trust disappears, people's motivations change. They stop looking for projects that create value and start looking for ways to just not get screwed over. They hoard resources. They see every interaction as a threat. Corruption gets worse not because everyone is suddenly evil, but because bribing someone becomes the only logical way to get things done in a system you already believe is rigged. It creates a nasty feedback loop. People see corruption, so they demand more heavy-handed rules, which stifles business and creates more opportunities for corruption, which destroys trust even further. People might even know the government is corrupt, but they might prefer its iron fist to the chaos of everyone stabbing each other in the back. But it's so much bigger than just economics. Trust is the bedrock of democracy. We trust our votes will be counted. We trust the justice system, with all its flaws, is at least trying to follow a consistent set of rules. We trust that the people we elect are, on some basic level, trying to serve the public. When that trust dies, the whole system loses its legitimacy. People stop following laws, stop paying taxes, and stop participating in their own communities. The social fabric unravels. We stop seeing each other as fellow citizens on a shared mission and start seeing each other as rivals, as threats. Trust is the difference between a society and just a bunch of people standing around. It's the belief that we're all playing by the same rules. And for the last 50 years, we've been systematically taking it apart, piece by piece. The death of trust isn't one event. It's a cascade. It's a chain reaction where one falling domino triggers the next, until the whole structure comes crashing down. It starts slow, then it accelerates, and it follows a grim, predictable pattern, starting in our wallets, moving to our neighborhoods, then to our governments, and finally, into our very grip on reality itself. First, the economic domino falls. It starts with those simple transactions, the coffee shop, the street vendor. When you can't trust them, you stop buying. When they can't trust you to pay, they stop selling. Now scale that up. Businesses stop giving each other credit. Supply chains, which are nothing but a series of promises, start to break. The cost of doing business explodes because every single agreement needs expensive lawyers and oversight. This is the distrust trap in action, and it puts a chokehold on the entire economy. We're already seeing it. The massive gap between the rich and everyone else has convinced millions the game is rigged. There's now a double-digit trust gap based on income in most developed nations. This isn't just about feelings. It poisons the well. It kills the idea that we're all in this together and replaces it with the cynical belief that everyone is just out for themselves. Next, the social domino teeters. As economic trust dies, so does the glue that holds communities together. We retreat into our tribes. The insane political polarization we see today is both a cause and a result of this. It's not about disagreeing on policy anymore. It's about seeing the other side with pure hostility and suspicion. We don't just think they're wrong. We think they're bad people. Research shows that as we perceive more polarization, our trust in our fellow citizens plummets. Our own communities become battlegrounds. We withdraw from civic life, which means we have even fewer chances to build back the very trust that's disappearing. It's a vicious cycle of isolation. Ironically, the age of hyperconnectivity is also the age of loneliness. We have more friends than ever, but fewer real interactions, creating a society that's more connected, yet more alone. Then the political domino comes crashing down. The decline in trust in government is breathtaking. In 1964, 77% of Americans trusted the federal government to do the right thing. By 2023, that number hit a historic low of just 16%. Recent polls show it fluctuating, but the trust is now split down party lines, meaning it's no longer a shared civic value, but a political weapon. When citizens lose faith, a cascade of failures begins. People become less willing to pay taxes or follow regulations. This starves the government of the resources and legitimacy it needs to function. So, its ability to do basic things, fix roads, fund schools, keep people safe, starts to crumble. This failure then becomes proof to the public that the government is useless, which justifies their distrust. This is the death spiral of governance. Political tribalism makes it impossible to solve big problems like pandemics or climate change, because every failure just deepens the cynical belief that the whole system is broken beyond repair. Finally, the scariest domino of all, the collapse of shared reality. For a society to solve problems, it has to agree on what the problems are. It needs a common set of facts. The modern information landscape has destroyed this. Local newspapers are dead, and social media algorithms have sorted us into echo chambers that feed us a constant diet of what we want to hear. We see the very best of our side and the absolute worst of the other side. Studies show that huge chunks of users are exposed to polarizing content constantly. We know that fake news travels 6 times faster than the truth. This isn't about being wrong anymore. It's about losing the ability to tell truth from lies. When there are no trusted sources, every fact is just a political opinion. Every event is seen through a tribal lens. We stop being one public debating a common future. We become multiple publics, each living in its own separate, unshareable reality. And a society that can't agree on what is real cannot survive. If you're watching this and thinking, yeah, something feels different now, you're not alone. A lot of people can feel it. The tension, the suspicion, the sense that everyone's slowly retreating behind invisible walls. And that's exactly why channels like this exist. So, if you want more videos exploring the quiet psychological cracks forming beneath modern society, the systems, behaviors, and warning signs most people ignore until it's too late, hit subscribe. Because the scariest collapses don't happen all at once. They happen slowly, while everyone convinces themselves things are still normal. This didn't just happen. The foundations of trust have been cracking for decades, but a series of world-shaking crises in the last 25 years hit like earthquakes, shattering what little confidence we had left. These are the 5 horsemen of our modern trust apocalypse. The first horseman rode in on the sands of the Middle East. The 2003 invasion of Iraq was sold to the public with a clear and terrifying threat: weapons of mass destruction. This message came from the highest levels of government and was echoed by the media as undeniable fact. When those weapons turned out not to exist, when the entire reason for a war was proven false, it was a devastating blow to institutional credibility. It wasn't just a mistake. It felt like a deliberate betrayal. It taught an entire generation to be skeptical of official stories and to question the motives behind every government action. The second horseman arrived with a market crash. The 2008 global financial crisis was more than an economic disaster. It was a moral one. The public watched the global economy nearly implode, thanks to reckless gambling by the world's most powerful banks. Around 10 million Americans had foreclosure proceedings started against them, and the crisis contributed to the loss of an estimated 22 million jobs worldwide. Yet the architects of the collapse, the institutions too big to fail, got bailed out with our money while regular people lost everything. The message was brutal. There's one set of rules for the rich and another for the rest of us. Confidence in capitalism, in banks, and in the regulators who were supposed to be watching them shattered. The third horseman was a corporate scandal that became a symbol of pure greed. Enron. The implosion of this energy giant, along with its accounting firm Arthur Andersen, exposed a culture of sophisticated, deep-seated fraud at the very top of corporate America. This wasn't just a few bad actors. It showed that glossy annual reports and confident CEO statements could be a complete fiction, designed to enrich a few while screwing over investors and employees. It pulled back the curtain on corporate crime long before the 2008 crisis even hit. The fourth horseman was a microscopic virus that brought the world to its knees. The COVID-19 pandemic was the ultimate stress test of our institutions, and in many ways, they failed. The crisis became a theater of pure division. An infodemic of misinformation spread as fast as the virus. Scientific advice, which should have been our North Star, became intensely politicized. Fights over masks, lockdowns, and vaccines weren't about public health. They were about which tribe you belonged to. The pandemic pitted neighbor against neighbor and destroyed trust in medical experts and government competence. The nearly 7 million deaths worldwide were a grim reminder of the real-world cost of a society that can no longer trust its leaders or its experts. Finally, the fifth horseman isn't a single event, but a new, unnerving global reality: the return of great power competition. The era of relative stability after the Cold War is over. The rivalry between the US and China, Russia's war in Ukraine, and endless conflicts in the Middle East have fractured the global order. For people at home, this constant drumbeat of hostility reinforces the idea that the world is dangerous and unstable. It adds another layer of anxiety and distrust, not just in our own institutions, but in the entire international system's ability to keep the peace. Each horseman delivered a powerful blow, but their combined effect created a perfect storm of disillusionment. A person who felt lied to about a war, cheated by a financial crisis, and confused by a pandemic was primed to lose all faith in everything. These crises are the deep structural cracks in our foundation. They are the moments we can point to and say, this is where the trust went to die. If the collapse of trust is a disease, our society is now showing multiple flashing red warning signs. These aren't abstract fears about the future. These are measurable trends happening right now. They're the symptoms of a late-stage illness, and the prognosis is not good. The first and sneakiest warning sign is the generational cliff. This isn't just a temporary dip in the public mood. It's a permanent demographic shift. Research from Pew and others shows a stark pattern. Every new generation is less trusting than the one before it. Millennials are less trusting than boomers were at the same age, and Gen Z has the lowest recorded level of social trust of any living generation. This isn't just kids being cynical. The data shows that as older, more trusting generations pass away, they're being replaced by more skeptical ones, dragging down the average for the whole country. This tells us we're not in a temporary trust recession. We are in a long-term generational decline. This leads to the second warning sign, what some call the Nero moment. It's the point where trust in government collapses so completely that it loses the ability to keep order. It's the moment its legitimacy evaporates, and the most chilling statistic is the one we already know. Trust in the federal government has crashed from 77% in 1964 to a low of 16% in 2023, and it continues to hover at historic lows. When the vast majority of people believe their central government is untrustworthy, the stability of that nation becomes incredibly fragile. It creates fertile ground for unrest and for demagogues who promise to burn the whole corrupt system down. The third warning sign is that the rot is systemic. This crisis of confidence isn't just about the government. It's everywhere. Over the past 50 years, public confidence has nosedived in nearly every major American institution. Banks, the news media, higher education, the medical system, all have seen trust in them crater. Even institutions that were holding strong, like the military and science, have started to see their trust levels dip. This decay is also fiercely partisan. Republicans tend to trust the police and the military more, while Democrats place more faith in schools and the press. This is incredibly dangerous. It means that when one institution fails, instead of everyone demanding reform, it's seen as a political win for one side and a disaster for the other. We can't fix the pillars of our society because we can't even agree on which ones are broken. This all feeds into the fourth and most critical warning sign, the vicious cycle of governance failure. This is the feedback loop from hell. It goes like this. Low trust in government leads to people ignoring laws and not wanting to pay taxes. This starves public institutions of money and talent, which leads to them doing a terrible job. When the roads are full of potholes and the power grid fails, it serves as concrete proof that the government is incompetent. This failure then erodes trust even more, which leads to even less compliance and fewer resources, which leads to even worse performance. We are watching this death spiral happen in real time, trapping us in a downward spiral of declining trust and decaying capacity. A society that can't solve its collective problems is a society on the road to failure. These aren't distant rumbles of a coming storm. The storm is here, the lights are flashing red, and they're illuminating a path towards systemic breakdown. After staring into this abyss of collapsing trust, it's easy to feel hopeless. The forces at play, polarization, inequality, institutional rot, the splintering of reality itself, are enormous. It feels like we're all just passengers on a ship aimed at an iceberg, and no one's at the wheel. It's tempting to just throw your hands up and say it's too late. And let's get one thing straight. There are no easy fixes. No single law, no single leader, no magic bullet policy can instantly stitch back together the decades of trust we've torn apart. The problem is so interconnected that trying to fix one piece in isolation is like trying to treat multi-organ failure with a Band-Aid. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. It's the first step to understanding the scale of the challenge. But the future isn't written in stone. While the problem is societal, its roots and its potential solutions start with us. Society isn't some abstract thing. It's the sum of our choices and our relationships. And trust is, at its core, a human-to-human thing. It isn't built by governments or corporations. It's built between people. This is where the path forward begins, with a radical, almost rebellious commitment to personal integrity. It starts with the conscious choice to be a trustworthy person in your own small corner of the world. It means actually living up to your promises, especially the small ones. It means returning the borrowed tool. It means paying back the small loan. It means being honest, admitting when you're wrong, and giving people the benefit of the doubt until they prove they don't deserve it. This might sound naive against the backdrop of massive decay, but it's the only thing that actually works. Trust is contagious. Every time you act in a trustworthy way, you make it a little more likely that the next person will too. You lead by example. The next step is to deliberately fight back against the forces pulling us apart. This means breaking out of our ideological bubbles. It means intentionally seeking out perspectives that challenge our own. Not to argue, but to understand. It means resisting the urge to see those who disagree with us as enemies, and instead trying to see them as fellow citizens who just have different experiences. It means getting involved in your local community. Joining a local group, volunteering, or just getting to know your neighbors aren't just quaint hobbies. They are acts of rebellion against social decay. Face-to-face interaction is the antidote to the alienation that plagues our society. Finally, we have to change how we consume information. In a world drowning in misinformation and AI-generated garbage, we have to become smarter media consumers. This means prioritizing verified sources and being deeply skeptical of anything designed to make you angry or afraid. It means understanding that algorithms aren't designed to show you what's true. They're designed to keep you scrolling. It means taking a breath before you share something and asking, is this true? Is this fair? Is this helpful? Rebuilding a shared reality requires a collective commitment to intellectual hygiene and a renewed respect for facts. None of this is easy. It takes conscious effort. It's much easier to give in to cynicism, retreat into our tribes, and blame the other side for everything. But that path only leads to more decay, and, eventually, to the full-blown collapse we've been talking about. The work of rebuilding trust is slow, thankless, and incremental. It's the work of a generation. We are standing at a crossroads. The trends are clear and the warning signs are impossible to miss. We've allowed the invisible bonds holding us together to rot away to a dangerous degree. The result is a society that is angrier, more divided, and less capable of solving its biggest problems. But the final chapter hasn't been written. We aren't just watching this happen. We are active participants. The choice, every single day, is ours. Do we forward the outrageous story that confirms our bias, or do we stop and check the source? Do we assume the worst about the person with the different political sign in their yard, or do we give them a wave? Do we honor our commitments, or do we decide it's just easier not to? These small individual choices, when multiplied by millions, are what will decide our fate. The fabric of our society is woven from billions of tiny threads of trust. Every day, with every interaction, you have a choice. Strengthen a thread, or cut one. What choice will you make tomorrow? Thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay informed.